morning, ladies and gentlemen, those joining us in our auditorium, and to the many of you who are joining us online on Zoom. Welcome to the Head Foundation's dialogue in partnership with Temasek Polytechnic. It is truly an honor for us to work with Temasek Polytechnic on today's talk, a talk that I believe is extremely pertinent considering the crisis that we are facing every day. Just this morning, we heard about a typhoon that made landfall in Vietnam after going through Philippines and destroying the lives of many and their properties. Climate change is real. And especially for us living close to the equator, the impact of climate change is going to be devastating if we don't do something to deal with it. So I was truly excited to learn about the interesting work that Temasek Polytechnic and its partners are doing to groom our young people, tomorrow's leaders, to be more sensitive about the challenges that we're facing, to find innovative and creative solutions. So today's talk, Going Green, Hand in Hand, Developing Glocalogists through Educational Partnerships, is really a timely one. And we are honored today to be joined by a distinguished panel representing not just the education sector, but also the private sector that works hand in hand to help build tomorrow's leaders with an eye towards sustainability and the green economy. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll briefly introduce today's panelists, after which they will make their presentations. We'll move to a discussion, and then we have a little surprise from Temasek Polytechnic before we go on to the Q&A section. So our first speaker for today is Mr. Efren. He's the course chairman of the Diploma in Clean Energy and head of Integrative Build Environmental Center at Temasek Polytechnic. He has more than 20 years of coaching experience as a trainer and a facilitator, and he's a professional electrical engineer and a PV designer with BESS. Maybe someone can ask in the Q&A what all that is. I'm sure it's very distinguished. And joining us also on the panel is Mr. Noel Chin, who is the president of the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore. Prior to this position, he was the founder of the Singapore Fuel Cell Community Interest Group. As the president of the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore, he is working with a team of passionate and dedicated EXCO members in driving hydrogen-related initiatives to lay the foundation for the future of low-carbon alternative energy in Singapore. Dr. Lee Hui Min, our next panelist, is a Senior Director for Group Environmental Sustainability from Singtel. She is responsible for the environmental sustainability strategy of the Singtel Group. Mien has sustainability experience spanning from research to retail to development come conservation sectors in her previous roles. And she is a trained circular economy professional. Last, but certainly not least, on our panel today is Mr. Wong Hsu-shen. Hsu-shen is the COO of GoImpact Capital Partners, a sustainability education firm. He is a senior fellow, sustainability, with the Singapore Institute of International Affairs and a lecturer at SMU Academy on sustainability. He is a certified green and sustainable finance professional with the Chartered Bank Institute and a trained lawyer and banker. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move to our first presentation by Mr. Efren. Mr. Efren, please.
Thank you. Am I audible? Okay. Thank you, Vignesh, for that wonderful introduction. May I have the presenter? Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to thank the Head Foundation for inviting us to this presentation. When they asked me to do a presentation, I was thinking, what am I going to say to the audience? Because from primary school, probably we have all the way to the expert. And that's actually one of the things that I'm thinking. What will be the title of my presentation? At first, my wife loves Korean drama. Do I want to do a dramatic entrance as far as the title is concerned? I don't think that's actually. I was thinking deep impact at sustainability. That's one thing. Then another one is, am I supposed to go and get the information of those scary data, a catastrophic of sustainability? So I think it's actually too drastic and scary. So I decided to have this title, which is called Sustainability, the Path to Going Green. And in order for me to let you know what is the sequence of this talk is basically I'm going to show you what does TP do in terms of sustainability. And then moving forward, I'm going to explain also what's sustainability development as well. And then from there, I'm going to ask a volunteer. There will be an audience participation. Okay. And then from there, I'm going to also explain what is the plan for green, as far as the green plan of the Singapore is concerned. And then what is TP is doing it. And then we're going to explain also what are the students doing, and then locally and as well as global. And then finally, I'm going to have some conclusion. Let me try to play the video. Okay, so what is TP is doing as far as the sustainability is concerned? Sit down. For those who are in online participant, I want you to grab a cup of coffee, and then for here, relax. So here's the sustainability of Temasek Poly.
In our ever-changing world, sustainability gives us the ability to exist, develop, and thrive while protecting our natural resources. Here in Temasek Polytechnic, sustainability is a key part of our curriculum. Our students get to learn the what, how, and why of sustainability. Collaborating across schools and disciplines, our students undertake projects with the community and industry that aim to build a sustainable tomorrow for generations to come. Some of these projects include turning plastic waste into useful construction products, food waste into animal feedstock, sustainable packaging and products, building green electric vehicles and recycling precious materials from its expanded batteries, enabling a green and circular economy. Complemented with smart and digital tools, students are able to embrace and apply the latest skills and technologies to provide sustainable solutions and services. Temasek Polytechnic also provides various professional trainings for the industry to uplift and equip the industry to embrace and adopt sustainability. In line with the Singapore Green Plan 2030, Temasek Polytechnic is an eco-friendly campus that embraces sustainability. By stepping up our solar panel deployment, adopting highly efficient chillers, reducing energy usage and waste generation, and having various green features, we actively work towards reducing waste and carbon footprint. Beyond these, there are various interest groups among our staff and students, like our Eco Campus Committee and our Green Interest Group, that take the lead in promoting as well as driving sustainability practices. We believe that everyone can do their part to build a more sustainable future together. Join us as we transition into a sustainable world, a world with limitless green possibilities.
That's the sustainability that we're doing in Temasek Poly. Now, my next slide is actually first we need to identify what's the sustainability development first. And if you're going to look at sustainability in development, the first thing, all countries need to look at economy in order for us to survive and then in order for us to progress. So first thing is economy. Are we going to focus on economy itself? Of course, when we talk about economy, sometimes when you do production, you don't care about us. Profit is the most important thing. We cannot just rely on the profit itself. That's one of the things that we normally on the profit as far as the economy is concerned. Now, we have to be sustainable because we are going to get the raw materials and we are living in one planet. On the surface of the planet, we have to take care of the environment. That is the second thing that we actually need to do, to take care of the environment so that we will be able to progress and do the economy. The problem is, the question is this one in the middle is the sustainability. that is not the sustainability development. Why? Because the most important part is the existence of our race, and that is people. And people is the most important part, and that's why we are looking at the sustainability development. And in the middle, that's the meaning of sustainability development. You have to consider these three different pillars. And then from here, now why we are actually looking at this is a very hot topic today. The reason behind is because of the climate change. And the climate change is sometimes you can hear this as a global warming. Global warming and climate change are the same. And then what's caused the global warming? Because of this greenhouse gas emission. And in order for us to have sustainability development, we have to control all these things. And that's why 197 countries, okay, out of this, 176 agreed on the Paris Agreement. And what is that Paris Agreement? We have to reduce or maintain the temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius by 2050. And that is actually what they are looking at. Now, in order for us to know whether are we able to meet that requirements, okay, probably what I'm going to do is, as I've mentioned, anyone from the audience to volunteer and see whether we will be able to do that. Volunteer from the audience? Don't worry, I'm not going to harsh with you. Okay, I will be actually more relaxed. No one? Okay, maybe I'm asked Mary. Oh, there. Okay, come. Okay, can I have my pen and my this too? Okay, so I have here a young guy. I want you to take a seat here. What I'm going to do is, let's see whether we will be able to meet the 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, so I'm going to ask him to think about a number from 1 to 63. Okay, 1 to 63. Don't choose 1 and 63. That's easy for us. Okay, so from 1 to 63, and don't show to the audience, because what we're going to do is we're going to involve the audience, because there will be a processing. I'm going to get the data, and then we will be able to identify what this number is. Similar to the 2 degrees Celsius that we will be able to get and then achieve that thing. And that's one of the reasons why am I involving the participant. Don't show it to us. Okay, think of a number from 1 to 63. Okay, so write it down. And we will gonna identify what's that number and then cover your answer. Are you ready? Integers, don't put a decimal point and negative. So I need to make sure that the data will be correct. Otherwise, if I got the data wrong, I won't get the final answer. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a card, 6 cards, and then I want you to tell us, okay, what is that, is your number is there in the card. You're just going to say yes or no, okay? Now I'm gonna get some data and I need Mary to help me, okay? So Mary will be the one going to help me. So if I'm gonna show the first card, okay? This is the first card. Is the number there? Yes, I want you to write 1. Okay? So you go on the right side. I want on the right side. Okay, right going to the left. Okay? So that's 1. The number is there. So the data is wrong. Basically, I won't be able to get the answer will be wrong as well. How about the second now? The second card. Is the numbers there? No. Okay, I want you to put 0. Okay. Let's try to move to the third one. Is the number there? Okay, no. Then it's 0 as well. Okay. How about the fourth one? Make sure you're right, Okay, is it there? Okay, yes, it's there. Okay, so I want you to put 1, okay? The fifth one? Yes, so that's 1. Last but not the least. Number 6. No, okay? So you put 0. You make that 0. That's the last one. Okay, now, may I have this piece of paper? Okay, you'll be able to see this, okay? This is what we call a binary number, which is the computer things. What we did is we tried to get some information from him, and we will be able to get what's the number is all about, okay? So later, we will reveal that. Okay, now why am I asking you this? Okay, the reason behind is if you are going to look at this 2 degrees Celsius, we have to achieve that. In order for us to achieve that, we have to collect data, whether the data is correct or not. And then how do we achieve it? So that's why all the countries, okay, most of the countries, 176, agreed to meet this 2 degrees Celsius. And Singapore, later we're going to find the answer. Okay. In Singapore, we have this called Green Plan Net Zero. And there are 5 pillars as far as this is concerned. One of them is what we call the city in nature. And then the city of nature, basically, they're going to plant 1 million trees. They are going to do the nature's 200, more than 200 of hectares as well. And then, of course, the wildlife and humans will be living harmoniously. And then the other one is energy reset. Going to use a natural gas, 4 times solar energy by 2025, and electricity imports from hydrogen. What is the part of TP? How is TP going to meet this and support the government? The support of the government, if you are going to notice, okay, so on this part, we are trying to use the facade to put some plants so that this will be absorbing carbon dioxide and then exchanging it into oxygen. So that's one way that we are doing. Now, how about the energy reset? The energy reset is we started to do training on renewable energy. So we are conducting training on renewable energy, on solar PV system. We not only for the adult learner, but also we are trying to share with the secondary students as well. And then the next one is we have reduced energy. How do we reduce? Of course, the next part is we have, Singapore is a very small country, and we don't have enough land to put our renewable energy. So that's why we're using also photovoltaic. These are actually the reservoir that we are using in order to have a renewable energy. Then biodiesel, and then aviation as well. And then what are we doing as far as TP is concerned? We're working with companies such as Blue SG. Blue SG is an electric car. And then we are trying to use this as collaboration so that we will be able to support government's initiative. By 2030, they will stop selling internal combustion engine. By 2040, no more internal combustion engine on the road. Everything will be electric vehicle. Now, the problem now is, how are we able to support the energy needed by this electric vehicle? So as you can see here, one of the things that we're working is we're trying to work with solar energy to become a charger. So see whether we will be able to meet the energy demand of this electric vehicle. The next one is resilient future. These are the coastal protection, greenery, cool paint, increased food by 30%. So what does TP do? TP do actually is here. Let me try to share with you. So you can see those 3 domes. Okay, we put a dome on the wall of our building, and then we try to bring the natural lights inside the room so that we won't be able to use electricity as well. So as you can see, this is the result, okay, of our room. You will be able to see that we don't even need electricity. So we reduce the carbon emission by doing this. Now, the next one is sustainable living. There is a zero waste nation, okay, green commute, expand rail, and so on and so forth. How do we manage sustainable living? So we use the 5 R's. Not only 3 R's, but 5 R's. What are the 5 R's? We have to refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. This is actually things that we are doing. Now, as you can see in the next slide, this is one of the projects of our TP Eco Campus where they need to do some waste audit. So later I'm going to explain that. Now, green economy, continuing, okay, so for technical, as far as this is concerned, for green economy, we have tied up with NEA, as well as the AGAS. This is actually a company where all the chiller company cannot work without the certification. Why? Because last time, when they decommissioned the chiller on a building, they just purged the refrigerant in the atmosphere. And this is the one that caused the destruction of our ozone layer. So now all this company must come to us so that they will be certified and let them understand the importance of recycling the refrigerant and reuse it. So these are the things that we are doing as far as Temasek Poly is concerned. Now, as far as the students is concerned, how do we involve students? we do several projects related to renewable energy and sustainability. One of them is this. You will be able to see this. This is one of the projects that we have done in Resort World. Because normally, sometimes, I'm not so sure whether you're guilty, when you check in into a hotel, and then they're going to give you a card, and then you put it there so that the things will on, everything will be on, and then some of the people actually have unique attitude. They get another card and then plug it there, and then they go out. So they let the aircon, everything going on but no one is there. And this is one of the problems. So we work with Panasonic, put a sensor there, make sure that if there's no one inside, it will switch it off. That is one of the things that we're working. But I cannot tell you which hotel is that. Because you might be wondering. Okay, now, for this case, if you are going to look at this, okay, so I have several projects. One of these two will be showcased this coming October at SIEW, which stands for Singapore International Energy Week at Marina Bay Sands. Students actually developed to produce 30%. How are we going to produce 30% of our food production? So basically, this one is the carbon capture. They're trying to capture the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and then filter it using an algae as well as the activated carbon. So by the time that it went out, it will cleaner. And this one is, the next thing that what we are going to do is the staff initiative, not only the student. For the staff initiative, if you're going to look at this, what we call the map of TP, those shaded portion are the rubbish bin. So what is those general rubbish bin? So the general rubbish bin, so some of the students have taken out to do some audit. What do the students put in a rubbish bin, general rubbish bin? And then we managed to find out, okay, that those blue, you will be able to see those blue are still recyclable. The one in the yellow one these are the general rubbish. So imagine in a general rubbish bin, all of this can be recycled. And that's why we need to show this so that we have an evidence to the students and in keeping in part on them the importance of the recycling. Now, let's move on. Now, we also go global because we are connected. We cannot just stay in Singapore and do our part. In global, what we do is we go to different countries such as Indonesia, Philippines, Laos, Thailand, and so on and so forth. What do we do there? We do certain things such as, one good example is applying the knowledge on solar or renewable energy. We do the smart hydroponics as well. And then we also do the sanitation because most of them do not have a proper sanitation. And that's why people get sick. So that's why what we do there. So, and then aside from that, if you're going to look at the next slides, okay, I have here, okay, this is in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. During that time, 3D printing is not yet available. So we use the bottled water as the casing to protect our circuit. In the daytime, what we do is actually we have a solar panel to charge all these lights so that at nighttime, they will be able to use it. This is in Cambodia. In Cambodia, basically, some of them do not reach the power in terms of the grid. And that's what we have tried to do. Now, this is my second to the last slide. Okay, so just want to show with you TP's sustainability at its best. Okay, let's play it. So sustainability in action, as you can see here, some of the project of the students, as I mentioned earlier, is how to collect the gas in the atmosphere and then filter it. So what they have done is they call it as a breathe easy. So they will going to capture the air and then try to filter it using the activated carbon so that it will reduce the carbon dioxide. So as you can see here, from 450 ppm, it was reduced to 390 and 300 ppm. We also use an algae as well so that it will be used as a filtration. And those are the things. We also use a robot, autonomous robots, beach cleaning. So you can see that the beach, there are a lot of cigarette butts over there. And then these are actually the robots that we are trying to use. So that is on the land base. Now we have the water base. So you can see that these are the students that what they're doing. So in water base, they try to have this collection of garbage on the water. So they use this, okay, they use a drone concept, not the propeller, because they want to capture also the oil in the future. Because when you use a propeller on the water, it will disturb the oil. So in sustainability on global, what we do, we go to a different countries, such as developing countries, and then from here, we try to teach them what's the importance of this. As you can see here, we teach them how to collect the garbage because they don't have a proper incinerator, and then we try to reuse it. So reusing this as a probably on the what you call divider, so it will be useful. And then we also incorporate the technology that we have learned, the students learned in TP, and then implement onto this developing country. So we also plant trees. So we are not just actually local. We have to connect with the overseas as well. And that is actually the last one. In conclusion, I think you are familiar with this young man, right? Okay, this is Elon Musk. I do not want my children to go to Mars. And I need your help, okay, so to maintain the sustainability. So in conclusion, okay, if we want to preserve Mother Earth, it is time to work together on sustainable development to achieve the temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius by 2050. Otherwise, brace yourselves that we are going to explore Mars with an uncertain condition. But before I end, let's try to find what is that number. So I hope you are with me to find the sustainability, and you are going to work with us. Give me a minute. Okay. Now, all the audience, okay, I need you to get your calculator, and what we are doing now is we are doing some processing. So the processing is, those are actually the 5 pillars of Singapore, so that we will be able to achieve the 2 degrees. This one, we're going to do a process also, so that we will be able to find what is the answer, that the numbers that you have written into this piece of paper. Are we okay? Okay, so let me try to, this one is the first one, right? Okay, so I want you to add, wait a minute, huh? Wow, this one is, okay, so I want you to add 16. Verse 16, do you have a 16, right? Then the second one, even the audience in the, what do you call this? Online, okay? Please do so. Okay, 16, the first one is 16. The second one is 8. I want you to add 16 plus 8. And then the last one, I want you to write, add one more. So again, I'm going to repeat. 16 plus 8 plus 1. What's the answer? 25. Is it 25? Wow, can you see? Can you show it to them? So I want you to do sustainability development with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Efren. As someone who regularly checks into hotel rooms, and as a matter of fact, is probably going to be sleeping in a hotel room tonight as I fly off to Cambodia, I will make it a point to take the card out. Because I've got creative. Sometimes I use those reward voucher cards that you get from coffee places and stick it in there. But I'm going to make it a point never to do that again. So thank you very much for sharing your very innovative innovations that are happening in Temasek Polytechnic. Now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Noel Chin to share his experiences as the president of the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore. Noel, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I don't have any videos to show you, so you have to bear with me. You either look at my face or the set of slides down there. I think the slides more interesting lah. Okay, so I'm from the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore, and I'm very pleased to be invited here by Temasek Poly to share about what we do. So the background, we were formed in November 2019 officially as a trade association in Chambers. But before that, as Vignesh had earlier mentioned, we were running a Singapore Fuel Cell Community, which was an interest group back in 2015. And because of the interest in this area, that's the reason why we finally decided to register as a full-fledged TAC. And also, more importantly, this is to align ourselves with Singapore's push to decarbonize the energy sector. So earlier on, Efren mentioned about solar your natural gas, electrification, regional imports, but low carbon alternative energy is the next thing that we're looking at, and we are very pleased to actually hear that Singapore is actually moving towards this. Fun fact, the Singapore fuel cell community actually has its roots back in 2007, and that was actually supported by the Singapore government. And funding was also given to set up the Clean Energy Research Centre, which by now you all would know actually sits in Temasek Poly. So we actually have the first manager of the CRC, Mr. Yu Tian. He was actively involved in that, and he's still active in our Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore. So the purpose of our association, we are committed to support our Singapore's push to decarbonize energy sector, and more importantly, we also support the members who are actually made of industry members, people who are from the research institutions as well, to actually look at providing platforms for them to collaborate with each other and other associations as well, both locally and overseas. Okay, so what are some of the key drivers for our association and the adoption to support decarbonization efforts? So we have 6 of them. The first one, developing standards and supporting to support the hydrogen applications. So we understand that with the lack of technical references or Singapore standards, it will be a bit difficult for us to actually look at hydrogen adoption and applications, especially in Singapore's highly urbanized environment where we have people living very close proximity as well as buildings as well. So we are actually driving the push for such standards and technical reference to be developed so that we can support some of the hydrogen and fuel cell related applications and pilot tests. Okay, next one, preparing our workforce for the future. So we all understand with hydrogen coming in, there'll be new jobs created. But who is going to fill up these jobs if we don't have the right skill sets? So this is where the association comes in to actually provide or develop training courses to cater for CET, to actually help our current workforce to actually acquire those skills and knowledge to be able to fit into those jobs. The other thing we also want to look at is really pre-employment training. How can we actually inject some of this interesting curriculum on hydrogen and fuel cell into our schools? And then how can we actually work on internships, especially with the polys and also with some of the IHLs? How can we get them or participate with them in some of these local and international competitions? I was just asking about the Shell Eco Marathon, which was put on hold for a couple of years. And Temasek Poly has been very, very active in this area. I think the last one was Eco Flash, and they actually won the competition for the hydrogen fuel cell car that was developed. So we are very, very keen to actually support Temasek Poly for the next Shell Eco Marathon, and then we hope that through this exercise we can also create more interest in for the students to actually explore this as a new job or career for the future. Okay, creating opportunities for our industry. So we organize events for our industry to provide them the platform to learn about the latest trends in and applications in hydrogen and fuel cell. So we're also going to have our first annual flagship event that will be probably next year. And this is where we actually bring together international experts and also provide opportunities for our local enterprises to exhibit some of the latest products that they have developed. And to actually raise Singapore's prominence in the hydrogen space. And also we will support other international and regional conferences in these events to actually promote Singapore's interest in the hydrogen space. Fourth, raising public awareness. This is very important because if you were to tell the person on the street, hydrogen is going to come to Singapore, first thing everyone is going to panic because they don't know a lot about anything about hydrogen. The only thing they can remember about hydrogen is about the Hindenburg episode. So we hope that through these various road shows and events that we're going to organize, we actually help to dispel this myth, to actually tell people more about what is hydrogen about, what is the characteristics of hydrogen, why do we need to actually work with or use hydrogen eventually in Singapore, and how can we use it safely. I think those are the key messages that we want to actually tell people. Okay, supporting research and development. So we're actually glad that last year, I think, was the first time, or 2 years back, first time that they actually awarded ELSA funding, low carbon energy research funding for hydrogen projects. So we are very pleased to hear that. In the past it wasn't talked about. But I think the researchers will also have challenges. After they develop solutions, where are they going to test it? So this is where the association comes in. We actually have the industry members who are actually keen to offer the spaces to actually test the solutions. And this is where we also can come in with our industry members, identifying the problem statements that need to actually get the researchers to develop solutions for. Lastly, going global. We talked about going to overseas. I think it's important that we also do this. We need to be plugged into the international network of the various associations, and this is where we have partnered more than 20 relevant associations and sign MOUs with them to actually see how we can collaborate together and actually explore partnerships. And the other thing is also we are also part of the Global Hydrogen Industrial Association Alliance, which is a platform to bring all the various associations under one roof to actually tackle international issues. And this is where it's important for us to be able to also share with them what Singapore has and what we can offer to the international community. And lastly, the business missions that we organize going to various countries to actually learn about what's happening there and also provide the industry members opportunities to actually explore collaboration with these other country companies as well. So lastly, we have more than 40 members, industry members on board and a growing membership as well. Looking into this space, we hope that we will be able to have more people on board to actually follow us in this journey as we move towards a low carbon alternative energy for Singapore. We are supported by committed group of people from the Exco. Everything is done pro bono. We have not set up the secretariat yet, so I'm very happy to have this team on board to actually help push some of these initiatives. So that's all from me.
Thank you very much, Noel. Despite being such a young organization, it has achieved so much. So now we'll move to Dr. Mien, who will make her presentation from Singtel.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I think I'm pleased to share with you what Singtel is doing in the area of sustainability and also share a little bit of my own experience having walked the journey in the last 20 years to what I am today. So I think a lot of people know Singtel as the mobile operator in Singapore, right? But so who exactly is the Singtel Group? The Singtel Group does not only consist of Singtel, but we're one of Asia's largest communication company. So in the group, we have 10 other associates and subsidiary around the region. So just some numbers, in the world, we actually have more than 770 million subscribers in more than 21 countries, where we also have an outfit in 17 countries with 52 enterprise offices, talking about global organization, right? 44% of people who work for the Singtel Group are actually based out of Singapore. We have the rest in Singapore, and of course, 79% of our underlying profit actually do come outside from Singapore. I think that's a very important kind of message in line with what we're talking today, right? We're a homegrown organization who have spread our wings in the region. Not going to go through because I think Efren has mentioned, but I also just want to say that you often hear about sustainability and you hear about ESG. Some people use it interchangeably, but I do also want to just highlight that sustainability is actually the what, right? And when we talk about ESG within companies and especially financial institutions, we're actually talking about environmental, social, and governance. It refers to a set of framework or matrix on how you measure sustainability. So in a way, it's talking about how, whereas sustainability talk about the what and what you're doing. Okay, I think, yes, the doom and gloom. We hear a lot about all the different issues. We read the headline. I think it's almost in the last 1 year. How many of you have not seen a single news when you wake up in the morning about climate change? No, right? Everybody has read about it. And I think increasingly you're going to see a lot more. Then if we zoom back down into the region as we operate out in the region, right? I think we have probably different sets of challenges within Southeast Asia. in this neighborhood where a lot of our neighbors are still in the stage of development, do we then say that, do we deprive them of development? Just because, you know, there's climate change? I think what's really important for us is how do we then, as we bring about development in this region, Singapore, and as well as the region, take sustainability in mind and incorporate all the various environmental and social consideration as we move. 6 out of some statistics, 6 out of 10 countries are less urbanized than the global average in our region. So really, I think in the work that we do, and with every one of you, a lot of you are in still studying, you're going to be the future's leader who work very, very much working in this region. I think really is how do we cater to this aspiration, you know, with less impact on the planet? Do we say that let's stop developing? I think that's not what we are looking at. It's really about how do we develop with sound environmental and social fundamentals in mind, that we talk about sustainable development, not development at all costs, as I guess, unfortunately, in the earlier days, we've done some of them. So then why do we do sustainability in the Singtel group? Is it because we are a tree hugger? Is it because we want to be a charity? I think there are various reasons on why we do that. So the first one is definitely as a, you know, we are a public listed company in Singapore. So there are regulations and there's also investors' interest in terms of ESG's impacting. Our investor would also like to see in the course of their investing with delivering benefits, positive benefits to the environment, whether it's through connecting people from the rural area to their loved ones around the world. Of course, we've set company commitments. We have, we've signed up, we have our SBTI set since 2017. And in fact, we are one of the first company in Asia out of Japan to have an SBTI target validated way back in 2017. Customer expectation. Wow, I think this is the right audience. Increasingly, a lot of people read a lot about the young ones are looking for responsible company. They're looking for consume products that are more sustainable. Employee expectation. This is actually a very challenging. Anyone who works in sustainability or hiring for sustainability will know that this is one of the challenging areas that the industry is facing. There's a lot of position out there. But I think there's not enough warm bodies to actually fill the position as we talk about among ourselves. And last one is, of course, regulatory and compliance that you've actually seen that with the Singapore Green Plan, the Singapore government has also come up with more regulation in terms of tightening some of the standards that we have in Singapore. I'm not going to go into details, but these are really other trends that we see as we continue to conduct business. So with that, Singtel we've been working on sustainability for the past, we've published the 13th version of a sustainability report. And with that, from time to time, we do refresh our sustainability framework. So this is the latest one that we have, which consists of 4 pillars. Climate change and the environment. Of course, I think that's the real topic today. People and future of work. Again, with the young ones in the audience today, I think people and future of work, not forgetting the educators who are also very important in this journey, talking about ecosystem. Community impact. I think we said that let's not forget about social. So what are the various positive impact that we're bringing to the community? And finally, of course, I think is sustainable value creation. Not only just the community, but ourselves, our supplier. Do we then together along our value chain enable our suppliers to deliver products and services in a more sustainable way with less carbon emission as we all transit towards a lower carbon economy? So a climate journey that Singtel has taken. Like I've mentioned, we've actually started our journey not just this year, but we've started since 2017, where we have an SBTI target. We've achieved a fair bit, a lot more to do as we currently are looking through and I guess developing our net zero roadmap to talk about how and when would Singtel arrive at our eventual target of towards a net zero by latest 2050. Our climate change and environment focus essentially it's within 5 areas. First, we would like to work on reducing energy consumption and increase renewable. I think hydrogen, it's a very important area that we are keeping track on, and probably we can have some collaboration as well. Next, green ICT. I think it's very important. Would any one of you say that for the sake of environment, you're not going to use your ICT products? No, right? So I think that's really important, is how do we then as a provider be able to bring you the connectivity that you really needed, but with a much lower carbon footprint. It will be even better if it's a net zero service that we can deliver to you through your mobile. The third one is, of course, mitigating effect of climate change on our infrastructure. As I mentioned, we don't only operate in Singapore, and even in Singapore, we read about flash floods. We read about, even heat stress. So really, I think it's how do we ensure that our infrastructure, which is very important to the connectivities that every one of us enjoy today, including the Zoom session that we're doing today, how can we really defend against the infrastructure, against the impact of climate change? We have a subsidiary in Australia, and I think every one of you would have read about this year Australia has like one of the worst flood ever, and then the bushfires frequency has actually increased. So from a climate impact perspective, it is really coming back to some of us in terms of our operational business. At the same time, I think we also, as an ICT company, in the course of us doing business, we also manage a lot of ICT waste, or rather, we produce and we in the process of doing business, we do use up quite a lot of electrical and electronic equipment. So I think electronic waste, how do we make sure that we bring back all electronic waste that actually can still be reused in the next products and having a second life? And finally, how do we then deliver products and services with less packaging? Of course, the best is no packaging, but we do still need to protect the product itself. Now, I've talked a lot about the different areas, and it's actually quite a huge area that you talk about, right? And I've also mentioned that we don't have enough people working in sustainability today. And from time to time, I get a lot of people ask me, what should I do, and how can I get to what you're doing right now? Maybe just let me take a few minutes to share my own journey in terms of it. McDonald's? Did I work for McDonald's? No, I didn't. Or was it because I had my inspiration in McDonald's? No. It actually started when I was in secondary school. Back then, there was this McDonald Earth Effort Award, which my principal then called me out one day to the office and said that, the school is going to participate in this award. Would you be part of the environmental team who's going to work towards this award? And I joined. So I think that's sort of, that started the journey. I started doing a lot of school projects, like the students in Temasek Poly. And I realized that it is actually a very meaningful cause. The more you get into it, the more you realize that we do need to do something about it, given that we are consuming. And not going to reveal my age, but that's like in the era of affluence, which I think many of you were not born yet. And then subsequently, I've also volunteered with the National Youth Achievement Award Council. I think some of you are very familiar with that. There's a NYAA. And when I was in NTU, I was very active in Earthlink NTU. So I think this is where the turning point for my life comes. Upon graduation, I'm a trained electrical and electronic engineer. So upon graduation, I was mulling about my future, right? Like every one of you who graduated. I think about, what should I do? Should I just, join a company who works as a, and be a EEE engineer for the rest of my life, or what? I was fortunate enough to be offered a scholarship, an A-star scholarship to do a PhD. Then the next question is, what do I do in my PhD? Do I do hydrogen cell research? Do I do solar panel research? Do I then do AI? I decided that I would like to combine both my passion as well as what I studied together as a profession. So I did a PhD on sustainable product manufacturing or sustainable product development, looking at closed loop product lifecycle management. Essentially, today we call it the circular economy. Yeah, which I have which I spent 2 years overseas in the US and in Sweden looking at electronic waste collection system. Yeah. After which, come back on a scholarship. I come back to serve my bond with A-Star. I think we've done a lot as well during the time. In 2009, we set up the first sustainable manufacturing center. That was really the starting of, I think, some of our real progressive SME who went into sustainable manufacturing, like Nanyang Optical. Then there come a chance in 10 years ago to move to IKEA. IKEA, I think every one of you know, right? I hope that, I would imagine that every one of you would have at least owned something from IKEA. It is an organization that it's a brand that strives to bring products to functional products at an affordable price, as well as in a sustainable manner to every one of us, so that everyone could have a better everyday life. Which then my next journey bring me to look after animal and conservation. Developing an eco-precinct for Singapore, I think it's an unique opportunity once in a lifetime. So I've decided that maybe, let's double into some development work, look at from end to end development, the development of the new parks, which I think you all read about. The parks are going to be open soon, and as well as sustainability also within the operations of the current park. And finally, I think my current destination, as you all would know, is actually in Singtel. So you saw that I have quite a varied background, right? From research to retail, yes, that was a 180-degree cultural shock in a culture change. But how did I then, could I say survive? Yeah, I probably can say that I survived. I think what I found out is, and especially today, when I interview people, which from time to time we do look for people in the sustainability hire. So putting this together, I would like to share a few pointers about what do I see in the next sustainability hire, and what do we typically like to see them having. Number one, I think one of the most important thing is really a system. Someone who has the ability to connect the dots between environment, social, and economy. Remember the Venn diagram? We're not talking about operating within just pure environment circle. We're not talking about operating pure within the social circle or the economy. I think it's really a balance. There will often be trade-off. And what's really important is, where is that important trade-off? Where's that point that everyone, whether it's business as individual, choose to operate? So that's really a very important point. Secondly, needless to say, right, you must be passionate about the issue. I think we talk about, without passion in your job, every day you dread waking up. Even though you can work from home, I'm sure even if you don't have passion for the job, trying to wake up and turn on your computer to work from home could also be quite a challenge. Interested in global happenings. I think a lot of us talk about, even in the last two speakers, we talk about global happenings. And Singapore as a small and open economy, we do see that many things. One thing that happened, the Ukraine and Russian war, right? We might feel that the Ukraine and Russia war is kind of like many, many miles away. But what do we see? We actually feel inflation. We feel energy price has gone up. And that's actually many other impact that we do feel. Determined, patient, and resilient. That's almost with every job. But I think in sustainability, you need a bit more. Why? Because you go to people, and then people tell you, no, you're going to increase my cost. Please don't come and talk to me. I'm not going to do that. Do you then give up? No, you don't. You think about another way, and then you find another opportunity and go back and say that I think we should do that. Maybe because there's a customer looking for it, or etc. So there's always this determined to bring something and to make change. General sustainability concept that can be really applied across industry, because I think sustainability is a philosophy, it's a thinking, it's a way of doing things as opposed to a real skill. Even though I still think that yes, a solar panel is a real skill, fuel cell is a real technical field, but it's also how do you then be able to talk about that within a corporate sustainability. Innovative and think about working differently in terms of your solutioning. Optimists among the pessimists. I often tell my my team and everyone around me that, the sustainability professionals are really the most optimistic people. Why? Because we see the worst in happening around the world. We saw the impact of climate change. We saw the impact of modern slavery. we saw, we really would look at, see all these things. But what then we tell ourselves is, among all this gloom, we think as a sustainability professional, we actually can make a difference. We can make the world a better place. I also want to highlight and tell everybody that sustainability is a very low barrier entry, meaning to say anybody with any background, you can come into sustainability, but do prepare to work hard because it's a high learning curve in terms of your work experience. If you have seen that sustainability can happen everywhere. And of course, if we have everything else, but we don't communicate, we don't engage people, it is very hard to spread the good work that you have done. So, this is my last slide. I think I have 3 takeaways. One is, this is really an emerging area that will grow further. We see more and more demand. So I think for the young people in the room and on the Zoom, there's many opportunity for all. And of course, I will always encourage the youth to keep a worldview while contributing locally in line with the team that we have, developing Glocalogists through educational partnership. And lastly, which I always tell people, don't look for green causes. Any cause you are in, green your causes, be it you're an educator or be it you are a student within the course, find the area of sustainability that's relevant to what you're doing, and we all can make a difference. With that, thank you very much, and I look forward to the Q&A later.
Thank you very much, Mien. I think I will certainly give up my ICT devices for a green economy, especially my work laptop. So last but certainly not least, we are really honored to have Mr. Wong Hsu-shen, who will be making his presentation. He's currently the COO of GoImpact. Mr. Wong, please.
Thank you. And once again, it's a great delight and pleasure to be here today and to meet with all of you people. So today I'm going to be talking about building your career path to foster sustainability. I think we've already heard Mien talk about what she's looking for in terms of potential hires. Maybe I should talk to you later about whether there are opportunities for us. But anyway, so I think my education company, what we do is we do actually provide sustainability education courses, primarily targeted at adult learners to see how they can redirect their existing career paths towards more sustainable endeavors. And certainly, there's also room for the youth, right? You can see that we have a lot of young who are coming into their own right now. And indeed, the world's population is expanding at a very, very fast pace. 77% of the young in Asia Pacific said they aspired to get a job in the green economy within the next 10 years. I would caveat that by saying that, to be honest, unless you are in a green economy, there won't be a next 10 years, because the pace of climate change, the pace of our use of resources is proceeding at such a fast rate that it's completely unsustainable. And maybe just to segue a bit into that, how many of you know that oil and gas resources, according to the more independent studies, will run out in 50 years? 50 years' time, we have no more fossil fuels. Okay, you still have coal. Coal is 100 years, okay? But the point is that, what are we going to do when we have no energy? Are we in a position to move into renewable energy sources? And if you look at the time frame, 50 years, maybe we need to have something up in running in 20 years' time, 30 years' time. Otherwise, it gets totally, difficult for people to have the energy needs. And then when you look at what oil and gas are used for, they're used to manufacture plastics, used to manufacture cement, used to manufacture steel. Do we have alternatives for these building blocks for a modern society? And that's when you start to realize that we have a real problem today, right? And we need to get moving on solutions to these problems now. Anyway, going back to this, we have 32 million green jobs in 5 countries in the region, and we're looking at 2030 for this. I would guess that it's actually probably going to be more than this number very soon. And within Singapore itself, you've got 450 different job roles available across 17 sectors. Huge hiring opportunities for young Singaporeans and indeed older Singaporeans these days, right? And if you look at the various ability courses that are currently being offered around the region, they're all fully subscribed. Right? There's a huge amount of interest. And you can see also, it's not limited to just the Asia Pacific. In the US, 70% job growth. Europe, 41% job growth, right? And currently, about 10% of the jobs currently being hired for are for green jobs. And this is expected to increase rapidly. So going back to what my company does and what we do, we're a dedicated ESG education firm. We actually are quite new. We started out maybe sometime last year, okay? And since then, we've seen a huge amount of growth in demand for our courses. We partner with higher educational institutions. We offer the course curriculum, and we offer the facilitation and teaching required for these courses as well. We like to work hand in hand with other companies, with other competitors. We try not to call them competitors. We call them collaborators because we recognize that this agenda of sustainability transcends everything else. I mean, at the end of the day, the world needs to come together and work together to resolve these problems. And this is the full panorama of content that we currently offer. It's quite an extensive one. I dare say that we are one of the few ESG education firms in Asia that offers a holistic education platform for people to learn, well, just about anything that they want to in regards to sustainability. And what we do is we look at the issues, the fundamentals, like where are we going to be in 2050 if the world is not met its nationally determined contribution targets. We drill down on the more technical areas and topics, such as, for example, global frameworks, regional policies, and local policy requirements. And of course, provide case studies. And we try to focus a lot more on the Asian case studies, the specific local contexts that are required. We recognize that every country has different rules, different policy shifts, policy directions in relation to what they want to do in relation to ESG, and we try to focus on those localities so that we offer more value add than what some of the educational institutions from Europe, from America are currently offering. And of course, we are working hand in hand with a lot of these others. Some of these names will be no secret to you if you're already involved in ESG. So the TNFD, TCFD, GRI, competent boards, all very well-known international frameworks and organizations that are very focused on sustainability. And specifically in relation to Temasek Polytechnic, we are currently rolling out 4 new courses targeting for first quarter of next year. These are for the adult CET professionals to come in and continue their education with Temasek Polytechnic and us. So first and foremost, we're going to be focused on the foundational sustainability course. So that is really to introduce people to a holistic blueprint of what the SDGs are, what sustainability is, and sustainable development. We're also going to have a more drill down course on sustainable finance for those people who might be interested, where we'll be talking about Singapore's Green Finance Action Plan, the Singapore GFIT Task Force, the various financial products that are available looking at sustainability or green development. We'll also have a course on ESG risk management. This is a very interesting course because a lot of you out there, especially those in companies, asking yourselves, how do I address ESG risk? What is ESG risk, for that matter? Is this like credit risk, which people are more familiar with? Yeah, it's a little bit similar, but the point is that I think increasingly the Singapore government in particular is rolling out defined frameworks on what ESG risks are. And of course, companies do need to follow these eventually. And they're starting with the banks and the financial institutions. But I imagine eventually they'll require this of the corporates as well. And we also have ESG reporting. So again, SJX now has mandatory rules. Previously, it was a comply or explain requirement with regards to listed companies providing a sustainability report. But now they are increasingly rolling out actual mandatory requirements, particularly with the climate risks report, which is going to start to become mandatory from next year onwards. So we provide specialized courses on these to help companies basically do up their ESG reporting in line with the SGX requirements. So I think that's all I have, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Hsu-shen. Ladies and gentlemen, I think now I was going to hold this surprise for a bit later, but we're going to move now to what would be a pleasant surprise. I think for those of you, we have heard from what the Polytechnic is doing, we have heard what associations such as the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association is doing, corporates such as Singtel, and educators such as GoImpact. But actually, what is the impact of all of these efforts? We are doing all these innovations in sustainability. But we started today by talking about what is tomorrow's leadership going to look like? What are the Glocalogists of tomorrow going to be doing? And it's really a pleasure today to have 3 students from Temasek Polytechnic join us to share about their experiences in sustainability. What are they doing in the school? What has been their innovations? So it's truly a pleasure and honor, and I have to refer to my little card here to get the names right, to invite our first student to share about his experience. Ting Heng, if you could please.
Hi, and a very good morning to everyone. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Ting Hen, and I'm very glad to be here to share with you guys about my the Shao Eco Marathon journey. And to start off, I would like to introduce myself, just a short slide about myself, and also later on I will introduce a bit more about the award-winning Shao Eco Marathon team. So my name is Wu Ting Hen, and I have graduated in Temasek Poly, the School of Mechatronics, around 3 years ago, and I'm the former team manager and also the car designer in TP EcoFlash team. I'm quite simple. My hobbies are traveling and just stock trading. Quite boring, but let's get into the interesting part. So I joined the Shao Eco Marathon team back in 2018 as a participant. And the team and I worked very, very hard, day and night, and because it's our first competition, and also we are representing Singapore and also Temasek Polytechnic. And with all the hard work, we won the first position in Asia and also the ASEAN, the region. And I felt very I felt interested in green technology, which I didn't know before, and I felt that I am so dedicated to to join back for the next competition and also to defend our title as a champion. So in 2019, I joined back as team manager and also the car designer. So I've designed the car and we built the car with extra efforts. With all the mistakes we made before, we learn and we improve it, and we actually scored a very good result, as you can see the picture at the right. Yeah. So as compared to other institutes, we are quite proud of our results. And actually, okay, let's take a look at the cars. So the picture at the left is the 2018's competition. The car is like a bullet shape. It's quite big, and I improved it to a better design. I'll say lower center of gravity. But the main thing I want to say here is not just winning the competition or how's the journey. The main thing I want to say here is behind the trophy. I would like to take this opportunity to thank companies and also the school, Temasek Polytechnic, for providing students from all courses. We have clean energy. We have School of Mechatronics, School of Clean Energy. So students get to have many opportunities, innovative opportunities to get their hands on projects, competitions, locally and internationally. With all the professional mentorship help, students get to enjoy and learn. And actually, the school did a great job to raise awareness for climate change. as we all know, climate change is impacts. It has a huge impact on Earth, and with all the advanced green technologies, I would say advanced technology in Temasek Polytechnic, students really get to apply their theories, not from textbook to hands-on. So it's not like back in the middle school or we call it secondary school. What we learn is just on the textbook. We're not able to use it to create our own projects. So also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the audience for coming to raise the awareness of climate change. This is quite important for not just the Earth, also to the future generation. So that will be all from my side. Right now, I will pass on to Xavier, the president of Green Interest Group in Temasek Polytechnic.
Hi, thank you, Ting Hen. Yeah, a very good morning to everyone here and the speakers. Yeah, so I'm Xavier, the president of Temasek Polytechnic Green Interest Group. So I'm a year 3 student studying in Diploma in Green Building and Sustainability. I'm a nature lover, love going on to adventure. And if you can see the photo on the left, it's just taken on Monday, where we were at somewhere near Mariji or Bukit Timah Hill. Yeah. So the rest you can see it's either me camping or the other one is somewhere on Indonesia water sailing with OBS. Yeah. So who are we? So Temasek Polytechnic Green Interest Group was founded in 2009. We aim to raise awareness about the environment and animal conservation. So what do? We do mainly environmental and animal care, conservation outreach, upcycling workshops, coastal cleanups, upcycle arts, nature hikes, and many more activities. So now, gonna watch a very short 1-minute video on what we have done for the past 1 year. Yeah, so you can see the past 1 year, we may be in this COVID world, COVID environment, but we do not stop doing our outreach. We continue to produce things like a video to educate people about the types of sustainability people there are in school, what can they do or what they should do. And if you can see the photo in the top middle, that's close to 500 participants at East Coast at OBS campus, where we did a mass coastal cleanup together. Then on the right, which was, if I'm correct, was last year, where I was conducting an upcycling workshop on teaching people on how can we, turn old t-shirts into recycling tote bags. So for this, probably I will share a bit more later. Then at the bottom left, it's a photo with Mr. Desmond Lee, where it was an appreciation dinner we had together with all the other organizing groups during Pesta Ubin this year, where we brought residents, you saw in the video just now, around Pulau Ubin, to really share with them more about the heritage, the nature, and the different things at Pulau Ubin. And the bottom middle, you see, which is a photo with Mr. Edwin Tong, where we actually helped to build a launching mechanism for their Mid-Autumn event. So you saw also in the video where, we use plastic bottles, we use toilet rolls, and things like acrylics. So for those mainly those I would say like unwanted pieces, all in weird sizes where we put them together. Then the bottom one is we were actually doing like raising funds. So we actually sell old clothes, second-hand clothes to the school population. Yeah. So as you can see, we don't stop now. We are still trying to push more. So in October we have tree planting, terrarium workshop. November we are doing upcycling workshop with MOM, Ministry of Manpower. December we'll be having our first ever eco conference. And then next year March we are planning for mental health and the environment. So we do not just focus on environment, we also focus a lot on mental health. And yes, we are traveling. We are going for environmental expedition next year in April out of Singapore, so that members do not just see what sustainability is being done in Singapore. We get to travel overseas to really see how sustainability is done, in other countries. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. Yeah, so next will be Randall. Randall is the head of relations, also in Temasek Poly Green Interest Group. So he will share with you more.
Hi everyone. Good morning. Thank you for all coming here at this time of the day. I'm the last speaker, so I'll keep it quick and simple and hopefully interesting to all of you. So as Xavier mentioned, I'm Randall. I'm head of relations and I'm part of the Green Interest Group in Temasek Poly. So here's more about myself. I'm a year 2 student in veterinary technology in Temasek Poly. And my CCA are like Green Interest Group. And previously I was from the Veterinary Wildlife Conservation Interest Group last year, but I've already graduated from that. So some passions that I have would be like wildlife observations when I cycle out into like nature parks. The closest one to me would be at Coney Island. I go there quite often. If you guys see me, say hi please. Gardening. I have like a rooftop garden above the car park. I grow like edible plants, etc. And then pet keeping. So I keep things such as like isopods, I keep shrimps and other stuff. So here are some images. The first one will be an isopod. For those who don't know, it's a crustacean that lives on the dry land. There are those marine ones too. This is a photograph taken by a photographer, Nikki. Second would be a photograph of algae that I took with my phone. And then lastly would be me engaging with other students on about nature. So what have we done in Temasek Poly? So in Temasek Poly, there are modules that actually inculcate the idea of sustainability by having the United Nations, the Sustainability Development Goals. So some of the modules will be like information communicate, ICOM, PCOM, which kind of like lets us research online on the crisis that we are facing, as well as like how other nations have been like solving the solution, coming up with solutions to solve it. And then as well as like global studies, we put GS1 and GS2, which should be more about that. So get to like volunteer out on and then have projects. So one of my global studies, global study 2, I'm part of the global citizenship and cultural development part. So we had a nature walk at Pulau Ubin, similar to what I had in GIG, but a smaller scale. So we brought like people as young as like secondary school students to those to close to 60. And then one more thing would be we have Innova, a module that kind of teaches us to like innovate and create sustainable products based on the UN SDGs shown here. Then in Temasek Poly, we also have campaigns such as Bring Your Own Bottle, which encourages the students and staff to bring their own water bottles rather than buying single-use plastics from the vending machines, which is a great movement, I guess. And then lastly, as mentioned, like of like cycling, we also have like to reduce waste. So if you didn't know, we actually have digesters in Temasek Poly. And what happens is that food waste from the canteens are being thrown into the bins and then will be brought over to the digesters to be recycled into probably usable materials for like compost, etc. And if you didn't know, in just the past 8 months, we actually racked up 12,000 kilograms worth of food waste, such as like from the vendors and also from those that consume the food, chicken skin, chicken bone, fish, and all those vegetables that you guys don't want to eat. Yeah, but please eat your vegetables, they're delicious. So on to food insustainability in Singapore. If you didn't know, Singapore produces lots of food waste, and about 12% of all our waste in Singapore is food waste. Kind of sad. We are living in a developed country, but yet we are taking this for granted. So in 2019, we generated a total of 744 tons of food waste. That's a lot of food waste if you didn't know. It's around 50,000 double-decker buses. Can you imagine that? It's a lot of buses. And then in 2020, it went down. Probably because of the COVID virus and everybody's not going out because they are made in hotels. The hotels like produce the food waste, restaurants, etc. And last year is really bad. We produced up to 855 tons. That's a lot. That's a 23% increase from the year before. So why is food waste bad? You just throw away like organic material. Well, it produces greenhouse gases such as methane and carbon dioxide. And if you know, carbon dioxide is really bad, really good at trapping gases and trapping the heat in the ozone. Methane is worse. It's 3 times worse. And besides that, this food waste actually takes up our landfill space in Pulau Semakau, which is really going to fill up at the rate we are going. And looking at the trend, it's going to be filled really, really soon. So what have we done in Temasek Poly? So in my previous CCA, what we have done was to compost. So in collaboration with a non-governmental organization, Project Black Gold, we did a composting project, which we used the food waste from the vendors, such as like vegetables, fish meat, fish bones, etc. And then we used it in the compost. So in the first picture, you can see those very green vegetables. Those were actually taken from the wet market nearby. They look very fresh, yeah. Despite it being at 11 a.m., the vendors just like, oh, we don't want this, we're going to throw it away. Can you imagine this happening every single day? And we got up to like around 10 kgs worth of that vegetable at just one singular shop in the wet market. And well, every day that happens is really, really bad. So the compost is made into this very brown stuff. It's really nutritious for the plants. And then it also encourages biodiversity. On the right-hand side, you can see more isopods. They are actually found within this compost. There are also worms, spiders, and many other animals. I even spotted a shrew there. And then what you see at the bottom there is Banded Together. Well, Banded Together is a project that me and some of my other friends decided to come up to also help with food sustainability. So we'll be using food waste to grow crickets. Who here is kind of eked out by eating those insects? Just okay. So crickets. We all know that insects probably gonna be the future food, future protein source, right? All right. Really delicious. Tried it before. Yeah. Okay. So what we plan on doing is like same thing as the compost. We'll be collecting food waste, but instead we'll be growing crickets. And not only that, we'll be involving like the CCA members to be part of this to better understand more of this crisis that we are going through. And to add on, crickets, unlike the commercial animals that we grow for our own consumption, such as like beef, poultry, and birds, like chicken, as well as like swine, they use less space, they use less water, they eat less, and they don't produce as much waste products as compared to other animals, despite them producing more protein and fat and other nutrients compared to the other animals. And in fact, they too have dietary fiber, so it's great for your motion in here, and as well as the gut bacteria. Yeah. Yeah. Currently, I'm testing this out at home. The males are non-stop singing their love songs, and I still can hear the ringing in my ears. So what can we do as individuals? Well, we have heard this many times, but I'm just going to reiterate it anyways. So we all know that our previous generations have like passed down the pressure and all the things that we have to do. But why don't all of us get together and complete it? Reduce our waste rather than just recycling, because recycling is supposed to be the end point. Let's do more reduction. And I'd like to end off with a question. What have you guys been doing about it? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randall. You've certainly inspired me. So from tomorrow onwards, the Head Foundation's pantry will only be stocking crickets and various other bugs. And I look at my colleagues stare with me with dagger eyes now. And also for guests to come for our events, we'll only be serving bugs going forward. Because everyone was nodding along as Randall was presenting, and only Xavier said he was eked out by it. No one else said they were. But ladies and gentlemen, please join me again in thanking our 3 students for a fascinating presentation. These 3 Glocalogists have convinced me that at least our future is in decent hands. So now we move to the last, but I think what will be the most engaging aspect of today's session, which is our discussion and our question and answer. I would open it to the floor, and also those of you on Zoom, please do, if you're on Zoom, do fill up your questions. I'm able to view them and I will ask them. You may also be able to vote up questions that you feel are appropriate or that you would like me to ask. And also for those of you in the room, just raise your hands. There are colleagues in the wings who will present you a microphone through which you can ask your question. Please use the microphone, because if not, we cannot pick it up on the Zoom. So our guest on Zoom may not be able to hear the questions that you're asking. So on that point, I will ask the first question and not put too much pressure on the audience to ask that. I think I wanted to sort of discuss a little bit about this idea of going global, right? Singapore is very fortunate. We're a developed economy. We have addressed many of the basic needs of society, and we are able to now pay more attention to environmental issues, to issues around sustainability and conservation. At the Head Foundation, we do a lot of work in the region. We look at education and how we can promote education and even sustainable healthcare practices in the region. But the challenge that we face often when we talk about sustainability is that it is seen as being something almost dichotomous with growth. So among our 3 panelists, how would you suggest we sell this idea that for many developing economies, especially in Southeast Asia, they're actually in a fantastic position to be more sustainable in their practice? They're going through the stages of development. They do not have to repeat the mistakes economies like ours and other more advanced economies have made. But how do we convince them that there are models of growth that are sustainable, that are sensitive to the greater needs, and that these models of growth from an education perspective should be something that they should incorporate? What would you say to decision makers in a country like Cambodia, in Laos, as they're thinking through economic models and importantly, the education systems that will accompany that? Maybe you can, anybody wants to answer, please go ahead.
Well, I think there's become a sort of slight conflict between this idea of sustainability and what is really climate change and environmental change. Over in Europe, we can see that they are lumping this all into social issues, into good governance, and actually good governance is an aspect of sustainability which I think hasn't been talked about enough during this session. And in the World Economic Forum has actually mentioned that on this issue of climate change inactivity, the greatest risk posed to it has been the lack of good governance, the inability of governments to force through the necessary rules and changes that are needed to enforce any sort of penalties that come along with those rules as well. We don't see that happening right now. But on this issue of globalization, what we can see is that various regions are starting to divert. In particular, you've got the EU doing its thing. I think ASEAN is also starting to grow away from that. And to a certain extent, I think that's why you can see a rise in protectionism happening across the world today. I think certainly for ASEAN, we can develop our own frameworks, our own activities. Obviously, Singapore cannot do it by itself. One of those frameworks that we do see starting to become very popular in the ASEAN region is that of the development of nature-based solutions. And for the developing countries, it's always been this issue of, okay, so I need to think more about the environment, but I don't have the money. Okay, so how do I fund this development? Nature-based solutions are one way to fund that development and also to redirect these ASEAN governments into ways to think about actually growing in a different path. Forget about your Rolls Royces, your Bentleys, and so on. Focus on growing more trees. Focus on moving away from dependence on coal. And I think it's starting to gain some traction. Certainly in my work, as a senior fellow in the Singapore Institute of International Affairs, that's something that we are trying to do. And we do see that among the government officials in the region, they are starting to listen and hear, this idea that's growing.
Just want to add on to say that I think at the end of the day, it's all come down to what's in it for everyone, right? So coming back to the point where I talk about being a system thinker, being able to see what it's, when we look at the partnership, when we look at collaboration, what is it that we're going to benefit the organization? We can't just tell them you can't develop because you have a lot of biodiversity, right? But more of how do we then narrate it and in a way that we're going to protect the biodiversity, to his point about nature-based, or even enhance it. But at the same time, where are the opportunities that they could also grow in the economy, whether it's through very, very restricted ecotourism, whether it's through even investment into clean energy in the region where they have space. I mean, in Singapore, we have capital, but we don't have space. Probably in an area where there's space, capital is not enough. How do we then strike a deal, a project together that everyone bring what they have best to the table, that at the end of the day when the project is done, there's a win-win-win situation that you're not going to see, it's not just us going to demand that you protect your forest and don't cut down. In the name of being, in the name of combating climate change and not develop, right? But how do we then find that source of revenue or that development opportunity for them together?
Yep. So when you talk about hydrogen, there's always this thing that we need to tackle in Singapore. Where are you going to get the hydrogen from? We say we don't have space to actually produce our own green hydrogen. So we have to explore the global supply markets. And ASEAN actually provides a good opportunity. There's potential for it to become one of the global supply markets. Question is, how do we do it? I think for the association itself is really working with some of these countries to actually help them to develop the association so that they can then bring all the members on board, industry people, to actually explore this area. How can they be part of that whole value chain for green hydrogen? I think that's where we see ourselves playing this important role.
I think I ran out of the answer because they take everything. So what I'm going to say is actually very simple. My last slide, if you're going to look onto, if you still remember, is Elon Musk. If you're going to look at Elon Musk, most of his company are, one example is Tesla. It's an electric vehicle. And then after that, he has the solar city, which is more on renewable energy. And then he has a boring company. And most of these are actually related to what you call the climate change, trying to solve the climate change. Now, he has one more, which is the SpaceX. This is actually, in my opinion, is a contingency plan. If we won't be able to meet the 2050, I think he's the only one that can go to Mars. Okay. I think that's actually my personal opinion. These are actually contingency plan. He won't be able to send 7 billion people into Mars. So probably those who are actually rich are able to stay and exist. That's all.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think on that note, do we have questions from the floor that we would like to ask before I adjourn to some of the Zoom questions? Anyone would like to ask a question?
In terms of like, how do I phrase this? Like, suddenly forget my question. Hang on now. Like, because how are the like products? Do you think that the prices will be affected because of like, because companies will want to make products environmentally friendly, and like, will sustainability affect like the prices? Like, will it have a big impact on the prices apart from like the inflation and stuff like that? Yeah, that's just my question.
Well, actually, inflation is what we see right now. Higher costs are actually because of unsustainable business activities and development. The reality is that the traditional Keynesian neoclassical model of economic theory is that your resources are essentially infinite, and you pursue economic or financial gain above everything else, and you disregard everything else. But that's obviously unsustainable. And we now realize that with a world's population approaching 8 billion people, there are indeed finite resources on Earth. The example I gave previously about oil and gas is just one such example. So the reality is that costs are going to increase regardless of whether companies try to do more sustainable activities or not, because the raw materials themselves are getting scarce. It's a new world that we're all having to deal with now. The reality is that the era of affluence is over. And one thing that I like to talk about is that there is an increasing cognitive dissonance between the older generations and the younger generations. The older generations have lived in this world of affluence. They still believe that resources are not going to finish. The younger generation, and I'm very inspired by our young panelists today, realize that there's a very, very big difference nowadays. But we don't want everyone of the young generation to become your next Greta Thunberg. There needs to be engagement with the older generation. The whole community needs to come together to work on solving this problem. And antagonizing people of different generations, you shouldn't do that. Okay, we need to collaborate.
Actually, I think if you go back to the basis of sustainability, right, the essential concept is how do you do more with less? How do you bring about more development with less resources or less impact on the environment, right? With that in mind, if any of the product that's sort of developed in a way with all this considered, the likelihood of it being cheaper in the long run would actually make sense, right? And I think we've seen that happening, definitely. We've seen really a high uptake of electric vehicles in the last 6 months. I think we sold 8 times more electric vehicle than in the first 6 months than what we have done in the last whole year. So, yeah, well,
despite COE prices being reduced.
So it's really, I think, how we looked at cost. Do we then look at upfront cost? Do we then look at total life cycle cost? And the good thing that is when a product, often we see sustainability alone, but actually, if you actually see sustainability together with quality, we all can accept that we are paying more price for better quality products, right? That's something is almost in a given. But if you see more sustainable product as more product that is of a higher quality, then it's the usual decision matrix that we all used. So I think it's also putting it in a different perspective and being able to see that when you make a decision, what are you gunning for? Yeah. One of the things that I think, one of the things that I probably want, and the young people, it's fast fashion. Fast fashion has been talked a lot about, right? Just because of the very affordable fast fashion. But what is the not only just environment, right? But what's the real societal cost as well? Yeah. The factory worker in Bangladesh, are they even earning a decent wages and etc.? So I think when put all things in, it really depends on how do we start to tell a different narrative? How do we then start a movement to actually change how society see things, right? Yeah, and it takes a while. So the only thing is just to continue going in the right direction.
Yeah, just like to add, when you talk about sustainability, if you're going low carbon alternative energy as part of decarbonizing the energy sector, right now green hydrogen costs about more than $10 per kilo. Definitely, in terms of price, doesn't make sense. But I think this is where the opportunity comes in for us to actually look at research and innovation. How can we actually produce green hydrogen more cheaper? And we're glad that there are some of our local enterprises who are actually taking on this challenge. Hopefully, we should see some results very soon. And by doing so, we can hope to see that the price of green hydrogen falling below $2 per kilogram, which will then make it affordable. And then that's where we talk about sustainability in the long run.
Okay, it's me again. The last one. Okay, so that's actually a very good question. Okay, the inflation is really, really going to affect things. Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is, in order for us to not feel this inflation, is we have to do our part. A good example is, those who are using a lot of oils are basically depends on the demand. If you have your own car instead of taking public transport, then basically the production of this oil will be much more comparing to this. So that's why what I'm actually going to advise is each and every one of us must try to do our best so that all this inflation, we will not be affected. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I promise for the next question, we'll start with Efren. So.
It's okay.
But I think just to touch a little bit on that very, very good question that was asked, I mean, today we think of things like fast fashion being so affordable, and that's partly because of the demand that drove it, right? It's the economies of scale that allowed it to become so affordable. But if we apply such similar economies of scale, and we were to consume sustainable products, we were to consume products that are manufactured in ways that are sensitive to the needs of not just the environment, but the communities that are involved, then you will also see that the prices will go down. I do agree that they are still a little bit more, but it's also the mentality that if you buy something, do we look at the life cycle of it, or do we just look at the upfront cost? I think we're seeing that electric cars, you're seeing the prices of electric cars, they are a lot more affordable than they were maybe just 2-3 years ago, right? And you got greater variety, right? More manufacturers are entering into electric car manufacturing. I think we'll see more with that. And another point I recently came across was this comment someone made of you buy once but buy well. And I think that's something that, especially when it comes to consumption goods, the things that we wear, we sometimes often get caught up with the latest trends rather than looking out for quality that can last for a while. We have a very good question online that I would go to before we move back to the audience. I think it's a very pertinent question, especially since we are now sort of living a little bit in a new normal, a post-COVID world. Although I see many are still wearing masks, which I think are very important and safe to keep each of us safe. But this is a question about medical waste, right? It doesn't seem like there is many other ways to move beyond that because they are vital, they are necessary. And of course, during COVID, all of us were masked up. The consumption was very, very high. But beyond that, in the medical sector, they will still continue to be used even when masks are reduced. Gloves, PPE, face shields. In your view, is there a way we can be more sustainable in the consumption of these kind of medical safety equipment? Efren, would you like to start?
Wow. All the questions that's coming from me are the most difficult ones. Okay, so this is what happened to me. Let me try to say, share what I have experienced. In the COVID time, okay, so everyone actually were running out of masks. And one of the problem of masks is, of course, it's a waste. It's very difficult to dispose. Now, what I did during that time is I tried to create a use UV light. So I order a UV light, okay, and then after that I try to sanitize. And this one is sanitizing it. I will be able to use it, I think, around 2 to 3 times. And this is one way that including my washing machine, I use my washing machine, and then after that I put the lights inside the UV light, and then put all the masks inside. And doing this, I was able to reuse, and I did not get a COVID, okay, only this round. I think that's actually one way that we can think about, okay? So we have to be innovative. If the resources is not available, you have to think. So how are you going to protect yourself? That's all. Thank you.
I'm a second. Okay. So we talk about medical waste. I think this is a problem, especially during the COVID outbreak. Every country is struggling to actually acquire medicine or vaccines. And in countries where they have challenges getting hold of vaccines, I think this is where we look at globally, how do we then manage the supply of vaccines versus the demand. And in countries like Singapore, we're very fortunate, we actually have vaccines coming in. Then what do we do with the extra vaccines? I think this is where we have to then look at it from countries' perspective. How do we help other countries who are actually having problems with acquiring the vaccines? And that's where we look at this cooperation and partnership between the countries. How can we help each other? I think there's definitely an opportunity that for us to actually address some of these challenges by this close collaboration with the countries, so that we don't unnecessarily waste any of this necessary vaccines. I think that's one way to look at things. How can we actually partner with other countries to look at balancing the global supply versus the global demand?
Well, I think this is the classic balancing act that we have to think about, right? Because I think, what's the downside of not using a mask is you probably see more cases and more fatality in the worst case, right? So, and coming back to balance between environment and societal, right? Which obviously it's human being, the well-being of people. So I guess what I would then say it's constantly, continuously reviewing some of the processes. Do really look at what's necessary. If you need to use, you need to use. But where are the different areas of marginal pockets that we can look at? It's really, if we look through, classifying your risk, classifying your different area of risk, and then being able to debate and constantly review whether in this situation where are the masks needed, as well as then I think the second portion, that's more from the process and operations perspective. The second one is the product itself, right? How can we then, a mask manufacturer look at manufacturing masks with less material? I think that's number one, right? So you actually reduce it. And then the second thing, when it comes to really the product, it's can technology actually catch up in the sense that how do we look at being able with medical advancement? What are some of the potential desanitizing where through industrial processes, some of things can be recycled back into other uses, maybe not in masks, but it can be whatever that's, again, depending on your risk level, and being able to see what can be recycled into with proper technology development. I think that's what we would have to look at and see when it comes to medical waste. Yeah.
Okay, if you look at in this day and age where all companies are being required to report on sustainability, the medical industry is notorious. Only about 20% of the medical industry reports on sustainability, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, in the whole world. Okay, and on top of which, we know that a lot of our very, very pollutive greenhouse gases like PFCs, HFCs, which some of them are 14,000 times more warming than CO2, are used a lot in the medical industry, for example, in anesthesia, in refrigerants, and so on. And then when we, anyone gone to hospital recently in Singapore? You find you get a hospital bill at the end. For most of us, we're insured, we don't look at it. Insurance company will settle it and pay. But if you drill down into the details, you see, how come you're being billed for one whole box of gloves, right? Since when did you even use the gloves? How come you're being billed for one whole box of, tissue paper or whatever? There's something wrong there, okay? One may say that, okay, yes, we do need to balance, human safety and health against this whole issue of sustainability. But if we just look at the frameworks by which a lot of the medical industry relies on, it's not right. So more can be done, I think, in terms of trying to conserve the medical supplies that are used, in terms of ensuring that there is a proper, fair, and equitable system of distribution there. And it can start with Singapore. Right? It can start with our hospital industry. On our part as consumers, we can try to do something about our own medical waste. For example, the disposable masks that you use. What I do is I try to remove the strings, okay, from the disposable mask, and I make them into hair ties for my daughter. Of course, now she complains that, the school is saying, oh, we only allow black or brown hair ties, we don't allow white hair ties, so I have to look for black disposable masks. Anyway, but the point is that, again, trying to recycle some of those things is something that we can all do, and we have our part to play. But in addition to which, maybe we can also look at setting up our own proper disposal collection points for the disposable masks. Otherwise, where are the masks going to end up? Well, anyone gone to the sea lately? Anyone participated in Changi Beach cleanups? all the disposable masks are there. Okay, and honestly, it's getting quite painful to have to clean them up for you guys all the time. So can everyone please do their part for that one? Okay.
Thank you very much, Hsu-shen. I think I fully agree. I think there's a little bit of misalignment also in terms of how the medical sector and the incentives to be more to conserve the limited resources, and oftentimes resources that are difficult to recycle for hygiene and safety reasons. And yeah, I not recently, but I was once in hospital admitted for like a day, and I was quite shocked by the bill. You know, they charge you for things that it seems like, you know, the idea is consume as much as possible. Most people, especially if you enter a hospital, oftentimes you sort of very early in the conversation say you're insured and it's left at that. So I think something needs to be done with that, and we need to look into it. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, I think we'll take two last questions. So before I move back to the Zoom, I'd like to invite anyone in the room. Would you have a question you would like to ask our panelists? Wow. Really? I thought there were so many things to unpack that was said there. But if we don't have anyone in the room, ladies and gentlemen, let me go back to our Zoom where I seem to have opened the wrong page. Right, here we go. Okay, so there's a very specific question that was asked some time ago and has been voted up. It was about the algae that's being used in the filtration of the gases that are released back into the atmosphere. The question is, do you conduct the algae culture first, or how exactly did you get the algae? It's a very specific question, and I'm curious to see the answer to that.
Okay, the next time I'm not going to show anything. Okay, thank you for that question. But before I answer that question, okay, the one that earlier question is very important, is for you to make sure that you're healthy. That's the bottom line. The more, if you're healthy, lesser medical things that you are going to consume. Now, going back to this algae, what we do is, I'm from the engineering, and then we collaborate with applied science. So this is what we call a multidisciplinary learning, because our expertise is more on automation and everything. Applied science, their actually expertise is more on algae. So we ask them to culture first. And then after that, that's the time that we use. We try to check what are the things, then how this algae actually works, and then how does it filter. And then from there, we were able to grasp the idea and knowledge onto it. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that the person who asked the question online found that information helpful. We have one last question online. Once again, I'll ask if there's anyone in the room before I take the last. Oh, yes, Randall. Oh, okay, sure. Wait, we'll pass you a microphone.
What do you do with the algae afterwards?
Oh, that's actually... Okay, that's a very good question. That will be your assignment for today. It's a very tough question. Okay, for now, I don't have an answer for that. I will check with applied science. So I'll be honest with you. So that's why what they do, they said they're going to use for biofuel. That's, if I'm not mistaken. But from that process, I'm not sure about it. So, but this is what I'm getting from the applied science. So all this product, they're using it for a fuel as well. Yeah, so that's all.
Anything else pertaining to the... Oh, yes, we have a question there, man. Nothing pertaining to algae, but another question. Could we pass the mic, please? But they can't pick it up online, yeah.
Thanks a lot for the session. So this is pertaining to hydrogen. Just now earlier on, you mentioned, people freak out at, when you mentioned hydrogen. So what are some of the challenges that you face in regard to the subject, and what are some of the things that you're doing to overcome that perception? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So maybe if I were to ask you, when we talk about hydrogen, what's your immediate...
I freak out.
You freak out? Yeah. So everyone freak out. And this is where, when we talk about the public awareness, okay, so I share with you what happened in February 2020, just before the COVID incident. We managed to squeeze in a business mission to Japan. So we had about 20 people with us. And one of the stop was actually a Tokyo Hydrogen Museum. It's something like our Singapore Science Center, but this is everything on hydrogen. So they actually had a lot of displays about hydrogen, from the very beginning, what is it used for, what's the characteristics. And they also had really some of the hands-on experience, how you're going to produce hydrogen, cycling a bicycle and all this. And then they also showed you, what's a hydrogen dispenser like for vehicles. We think that that is actually a very good program because it's actually open to public and even to students for them to actually have a better understanding of hydrogen and how is it going to be used, what are the different applications, how does it help make our lives easier when we move towards a hydrogen economy, and most importantly, how to make it safe. There's always a question I always ask people. With the petrol stations next to your home, sometimes even 50 meters away from your home, do you have this fear that the station might just explode around these days? No, because it has become accepted. And it took them many years to actually accept that petrol is safe for us for use. And we want to actually be able to do that for hydrogen. It may happen maybe 5 years later, 10 years later, or maybe by 2050 or later. But I think that is the key thing. We want to have that kind of acceptance by the public. And the only way to do that is through these various exhibitions and roadshows. And of course, with a lot more sharing through our webinar series that we organize every month. And this will be a good way to educate the public. And of course, through PET, we mentioned how we can include that in the syllabus. Not just about hydrogen as a chemistry subject, but hydrogen as how does it actually benefit us and becomes part of our daily lives. I think that's what we strive to achieve. For me, if I see a petrol station 50 meters from me, I'm very happy. I can refuel my car and I can also use the convenience store which is open 24/7. So that's what we want to do. But I think maybe moving forward, we understand that there's also a challenge because EV for passenger cars is the way for Singapore. Should we also want to compete with them, or do we look at it as complementing the entire transportation sector, where we look at electrifying the larger vehicle fleets, like the heavy goods vehicles and your fleet buses, and then leave the passenger cars to Elon Musk and right now it's Elon Musk. I don't know who else is there. Let them fight in that space while we tackle the bigger problem with the heavy goods vehicles. So I hope that answered your question.
Well, thank you very much, Noel. Do we have any more? Would you like to comment?
I just wanted to add that that's actually not a hydrogen kind of unique issue, right? It's also with any new things. Back then, when solar panel, when Singapore first started solar panel, we have so many people asking, the insurance company coming. It was probably 10 years ago when we were putting up solar panel. We're one of the few, and people start asking about, will the solar panel catch fire? You have your insurance coming, and then you have your SCDF saying that what's your fire risk, and then add on a lot of other rules. So I think fast forward to today, the acceptance of solar panel becomes a norm, right? Everyone talks about, I think Noel in your day job, that solar panel now becomes a permanent feature of any new building in Singapore. People no longer ask, will the solar panel catch fire? And I think for the record, when we had to answer that question, it was like in the whole world there was only one incident in Germany, and that's for the whole world. So again, it's, I guess, also being able to demonstrate, being able to tell the story of how it has benefit and what's that risk, right? When people always talk about you have higher risk of getting in an accident on the road than taking a plane.
Yeah.
So everything comes down to acceptance and really bringing facts and true statistics to people. Yeah, thanks.
Can I add something? Okay, on the hydrogen. Okay, so it's actually more dangerous when you use petrol compared to hydrogen. The reason behind is the moment that you clash into the thing, the petrol will come over to you. And when it splashes to you and it starts igniting, you will get burned. Unlike in hydrogen, the moment that it crashes, it actually moves up because hydrogen is lighter than the air. And this is one thing. For the solar panel, okay, the one that actually, it's also dangerous. So that's why the SCDF need to be in, because the moment that solar panel burns, you cannot put water on it. The sun is actually shining and it's keep producing electricity. The moment that you put water on it, you can get electrocuted. And that's why solar panel is not that simple. But however, now if you're going to notice, we are able to accept it because of the things that we have to do safe as well. Okay, I think I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
The reality as well is that as a result of the Ukraine war, we can see that all countries in the world are worried about energy security. The equal reality is that there is no one renewable energy source that is the universal solution or substitute to oil and gas dependencies right now. So all of these different renewable energy initiatives need to run in tandem in order to replace oil and gas. And that includes hydrogen, solar, hydropower, wind power, and so on. So, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's one thing that countries have learned as a result of this current energy crisis. And the same thing applies equally for Singapore and for us as individuals as well. We need to ensure that we have some contingency plans in place. We can't solely rely on, solar or only on hydrogen. We need to do all of them together.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll keep Hui Min's comment in mind as I take a cab to catch a flight in about an hour's time. But ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's session, and in the interest of time, we have to bring to a close. I hope many of you have found the session to be as educational, enlightening, and informative as I have. And I would now like to ask each of you to join me in thanking our 4 panelists and our 3 students for their fantastic presentation. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Temasek Polytechnic for working with us in putting together this dialogue and this conversation, an opportunity for us to learn more about the work that the various organizations within our society are doing so as to ensure that we, and not just us, but our children and their children, have a world to look forward to and not on Elon Musk's Mars. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us in person and on Zoom. And you can watch the recordings on our website, and the links are now available on screen. So thank you very much and have a pleasant day ahead.